truck, well, even the average pickup truck now is going to be crossing over that $50,000 barrier.
You thought you were protected. You thought you were safe. You weren't. Behind the ads, the promises, and the polished images were flaws so damaging. They drained wallets, destroyed trust, and left people stranded when they needed help most. So what were the hidden failures? Who allowed it to happen? And how many lives are still paying the price today? Because by the time this is over, you'll know. Missing this video doesn't just cost knowledge. It costs security. Ford F-150. Every now and then, even the top dog of the American truck market can stumble hard enough to shake confidence across the entire industry. That is exactly what happened when Ford rolled out the F-150, fitted with the 5.4-liter Triton 3-valve power plant in the mid-2000s. On paper, the engine sounded like a proven workhorse, a modern V8 promising solid torque, competitive towing, and the rugged dependability buyers had come to expect from the nation's best-selling pickup. In reality, however, owners soon discovered that this version of the Triton was a mechanic's dream and a driver's nightmare. The most notorious headache came from the infamous two-piece spark plugs. Instead of a simple design, these plugs had a tendency to seize inside the aluminum cylinder heads, breaking off when removal was attempted. That meant expensive shop bills or entire cylinder head replacements just to perform routine maintenance. Add in faulty cam phasers that rattled like a box of loose tools, timing chain tensioners that wore out prematurely, and exhaust manifolds prone to cracking, and you had a recipe for a truck that spent far too much time in the service bay. For working men who needed reliable rigs, those problems were not just inconveniences, they were threats to a livelihood. Imagine hauling tools to a job site only to hear a death rattle under the hood, or budgeting for a mortgage while facing a repair bill that rivaled a month's wages. Even die-hard Ford loyalists began to question whether the badge on the grille was enough to justify the trouble. Despite offering comfortable interiors and strong frames, this generation's mechanical issues left scars that still echo through used truck markets today. The F-150 with the 5.4-liter Triton 3-valve proves that even America's best-selling truck can wear a crown that hides cracks underneath. It is a cautionary tale. Dominance in sales does not guarantee excellence in engineering, and while many have since been repaired, bulletproofed, or rebuilt, the memory of seized plugs and rattling valve trains lingers. Shift your focus from Ford's troubled flagship to Chevrolet's half-ton Silverado, a truck that promised fuel savings but left owners with lifters collapsing and oil disappearing faster than a paycheck on Friday night. If you're fired up already, hit that like button. It keeps this channel rolling. Drop a comment with your worst truck experience, because your story might end up featured next. Chevrolet Silverado 1500. Among the proud symbols of American pickups, the Chevrolet Silverado 1500 has always stood shoulder to shoulder with its rivals, but the version produced between the years 2007 and 2013 carried a hidden flaw that quietly drained both trust and bank accounts. At first glance, this half-ton appeared to be the perfect balance of rugged reliability and comfortable refinement. It looked strong, drove smoothly, and promised efficiency through the clever technology known as active fuel management, a system that could shut down cylinders during light driving to save fuel. Buyers believed they were stepping into the future of truck engineering. Unfortunately, the reality was far less promising. The active fuel management system relied on lifters and complex controls that often failed prematurely. When lifters collapsed, the engine would misfire, run rough, or in some cases require major repairs costing thousands of dollars. Drivers who simply wanted a trustworthy rig to haul lumber, tow a boat, or carry family down the highway were left facing bills large enough to spoil the ownership experience. To make matters worse, these engines became notorious for consuming oil at alarming rates. Many owners had to carry extra quarts in the bed or risk running dangerously low between scheduled changes. Even beyond the mechanical flaws, there was a sense of betrayal. The Silverado badge had long represented reliability to generations of working-class Americans, yet this particular run left a sour taste. Some trucks soldiered on after repeated fixes, while others were traded in early, damaging resale values and tarnishing loyalty. What should have been a shining example of modern General Motors engineering instead became a warning about chasing efficiency without testing long-term durability. Despite these troubles, the Silverado remained popular due to its comfortable cabin, available four-wheel drive, and traditional styling. But when the conversation turns to trucks that promised more than they delivered, this generation inevitably takes its place. It serves as a reminder that even celebrated names can stumble when innovation outpaces dependability. After watching Chevrolet's misfire, it is time to turn toward Dodge, where bold style in the early 2000s, Ram hid one of the weakest transmissions ever fitted into a full-size pickup. Dodge Ram 1500. Every generation of American trucks carries its legends, but in the early years of the 2000s, Dodge delivered a Ram 1500 that looked ready to dominate the road, while hiding weaknesses that frustrated countless owners. This version carried bold sheet metal, aggressive lines, and a sense of power that made it an instant favorite for drivers who wanted presence both on the job site and cruising Main Street. Beneath that tough image, however, lay one of the most fragile automatic transmissions ever fitted into a full-size pickup. The automatic gearboxes, known internally as the 46RE and the 45RFE, were infamous for slipping, shuddering, and eventually giving up the ghost far earlier than expected. For hard-working drivers who relied on their truck to haul equipment or tow heavy trailers, sudden transmission failure was not simply inconvenient. It was catastrophic. Rebuilds and replacements often cost several $1,000s, and repeat failures were not uncommon. Owners who once bragged about their muscular Rams now found themselves stranded on the roadside or waiting in line at transmission shops that grew far too familiar with these models. The problems did not end with the transmission. Inside the cab, dashboards were notorious for cracking into spiderweb patterns, leaving interiors that looked battle-worn long before their time. The front suspension also developed wear quickly, forcing constant repairs to ball joints and steering components. Rust made an unwelcome appearance on frames and wheel arches, further reminding owners that good looks did not always equal lasting durability. Yet despite the disappointments, this generation of the Ram still attracted loyalty. Its Hemi 5.8 option roared with confidence, and its styling captured attention everywhere it went. But ask the men who poured paychecks into keeping their trucks alive, and they will tell you it was a love-hate relationship that leaned heavily toward frustration. This Ram serves as a hard-learned lesson. A truck's attitude cannot compensate for mechanical fragility. Leaving Dodge's wounded automatic gearboxes behind, we slide into Chevrolet's Avalanche, a chameleon of a truck that looked revolutionary, but soaked its owners in problems almost as often as it soaked its own carpets. Chevrolet Avalanche. Back in the early 2000s, General Motors rolled out a pickup that looked like the ultimate do-everything vehicle, a truck that could morph into an SUV or open up like a flatbed when the job demanded it. That vehicle was the Chevrolet Avalanche, a rig with swagger, versatility, and a bold new feature called the midgate, which allowed owners to fold down the rear wall and expand cargo space into the cabin. At first glance, it seemed like the truck world had finally discovered the Swiss Army knife on wheels. But with time, owners learned that this ambitious experiment came with serious flaws that chipped away at its reputation. One of the most visible issues involved the cladding. Those heavy gray plastic body panels, intended to give the Avalanche a rugged identity, quickly faded in sunlight. Within a few years, the once proud finish turned chalky and cheap, forcing owners to either live with an eyesore or spend money on refinishing kits. Meanwhile, the midgate itself, though clever, opened the door to a new kind of frustration. Water intrusion became a common complaint, with leaks soaking carpets and creating mildew smells strong enough to ruin the drive. Some drivers described their Avalanche as feeling less like a truck and more like a rolling basement after a storm. Electrical problems also plagued this generation, from faulty instrument clusters to glitchy accessories. Add in steering column clunks, premature front suspension wear, and paint that peeled too easily. And what began as an exciting concept ended up as a long-term headache for many families. The Avalanche was still capable of towing and hauling like a half-ton truck, but constant little failures chipped away at its usefulness. To its credit, the Avalanche did build a cult following. Some owners adored the creative layout, the roomy cabin, and the versatility no other pickup could match. But for every loyal fan, there was another who swore never to buy one again. It became the classic example of a truck that tried to be everything and ended up being too compromised. From a full size that tried too hard, we shrink down to Ford's compact Ranger, a truck beloved by many, yet haunted by a timing chain system that rattled owners' nerves as loudly as it rattled under the hood. Ford Ranger. In the late 1990s, Ford's compact Ranger was seen as the tough little brother to the mighty F-Series, a no-nonsense truck small enough to fit in suburban driveways but stout enough to haul dirt bikes, tow small trailers, and clock endless miles for young workers. It wore a badge built on credibility, and many believed it to be nearly indestructible. But the version sold between 1998 and 2003, equipped with the 4.0-liter single-overhead camshaft V6 engine, carried a dark secret under the hood that would haunt owners long after the warranty expired. The trouble centered on its overly complicated timing chain system. Unlike simpler designs, this engine relied on multiple chains routed through the front and rear of the block, with plastic guides and tensioners that were far too fragile. As the miles stacked up, those guides would wear down or break, creating a rattling sound that every Ranger owner dreaded. Left unchecked, the problem could lead to catastrophic failure, often requiring the cab to be lifted off the frame just to reach the rear-mounted components. Repairs frequently cost several $1,000s, more than many owners wanted to sink into a compact pickup. Beyond the timing chain nightmare, the Ranger struggled with aging safety standards. Crash tests revealed that its protection for passengers lagged behind newer competitors, and recalls tied to airbags only added to the worry. Electrical quirks, fuel system issues, and rust-prone frames in northern climates piled onto the list of complaints, undermining what was once praised as a dependable little truck. Still, enthusiasts point out that when properly maintained, the Ranger could soldier on for hundreds of thousands of miles. Its small size and simple design appealed to tradesmen and outdoor enthusiasts alike. Yet the legacy of this era is tarnished by the frustration of expensive engine repairs and safety concerns. It became proof that even compact trucks can saddle their owners with oversized headaches. Once the Ranger's flaws are clear, the spotlight moves to General Motors' mid-size duo, the Chevrolet Colorado and GMC Canyon. Chevrolet Colorado and GMC Canyon. When General Motors unveiled the Chevrolet Colorado and its sibling, the GMC Canyon, in the early 2000s, the company promised buyers a new breed of mid-size truck that would combine manageable size with big capability. The heart of that promise was the unusual 3.5-liter inline 5-cylinder engine, a design intended to bridge the gap between a fuel-efficient 4-cylinder and a torque-heavy 6-cylinder. On paper, it looked innovative, efficient, and forward-thinking. On the road, however, it quickly proved to be one of the most troublesome power plants of its time, leaving countless owners with frustration that far outweighed the truck's compact convenience. The first and most infamous problem came from cylinder head failures. Many of these inline-5 engines developed cracks that allowed coolant to seep into the combustion chamber. Drivers noticed rough running, clouds of white smoke, and eventually catastrophic engine damage if the issue was not addressed. Even when repaired under warranty, some engines failed again, souring the ownership experience. Alongside that, the truck suffered from stubborn misfires and ignition coil breakdowns that turned everyday commuting into an unpredictable gamble. Electrical gremlins only added to the misery. Instrument clusters often failed, leaving speedometers frozen at random numbers and fuel gauges refusing to budge. The Passlock anti-theft system could suddenly disable the truck, stranding owners at gas stations or job sites. Add in premature front-end wear, steering problems, and paint that peeled under harsh sunlight, and what was supposed to be a practical daily truck became a rolling list of service appointments. Despite these flaws, the Colorado and Canyon did attract drivers who appreciated their manageable size, available four-wheel drive, and decent towing for a smaller truck. But for many, the trade-off was endless repairs and declining resale values. Instead of redefining the mid-size pickup market, these models served as cautionary tales of innovation without proper durability. The Chevrolet Colorado and GMC Canyon from this era remind us that new ideas in truck engineering must be tested with real toughness, not just advertised. After Colorado's experimental engine disaster, we head into Dodge's Dakota, a mid-sized truck that looked muscular but collapsed at the knees with suspension failures and rust creeping in faster than owners could stop it. Dodge Dakota. Among all the mid-sized pickups that rolled out at the turn of the millennium, none promised as much swagger as the Dodge Dakota. It was not too small and not too large, delivering a just-right size that made it a tempting choice for buyers who wanted a truck more manageable than a full-size but still capable of towing, hauling, and working hard. With its bold styling, muscular stance, and the option of a V8 engine, the Dakota stood out in a crowded market. Yet beneath the confident exterior, this truck carried weaknesses that eroded its reputation and left countless owners with repair bills that hit harder than a sledgehammer. The most notorious flaw was its fragile front suspension. Upper ball joints, a crucial part of steering and stability, were prone to failure far earlier than expected. Many trucks needed replacements before reaching even 40,000 miles, and the situation became so widespread that recalls were issued. For drivers, this meant clunks, poor handling, and the unnerving feeling of a front end that could not be trusted. Repair shops grew accustomed to seeing Dakotas roll in with the same predictable problem, sometimes again and again, because the original design simply could not handle real-world punishment. Rust was another enemy. Frames and wheel arches, particularly in northern states exposed to road salt, corroded faster than competitors. Some trucks looked rugged from the outside while quietly dissolving underneath. Add in steering rack issues, weak transmissions in V6 versions, and engines that developed sludge when oil changes were neglected, and the Dakota's reputation began to crumble as quickly as its suspension components. Still, many buyers loved the concept. The available 4.7-liter V8 delivered strong torque, and the truck's size gave it versatility full-size models sometimes lacked. But enthusiasm could not outweigh the frustration of repeated trips to mechanics. Owners who wanted long-lasting toughness instead discovered a mid-size machine plagued by corner cutting. The Dodge Dakota from this era stands as a reminder that strength is about more than appearance. A truck can look brawny, but falter when tested daily. With the Dakota's shortcomings exposed, it is time to shine a light on Lincoln's Blackwood, a so-called luxury truck that forgot what a pickup was even meant to do. Lincoln Blackwood. Luxury and practicality rarely mix seamlessly in the truck world, but Lincoln believed it could rewrite the rules with the Blackwood. Introduced for the 2002 model year, this vehicle was meant to be the ultimate fusion of a plush luxury sedan and a capable pickup. On paper, it was daring, elegant, and ambitious. In practice, it quickly earned a reputation as one of the most puzzling missteps in American automotive history. The Blackwood promised everything, yet delivered so little that it was discontinued after only a single model year. The most glaring flaw sat in plain view: the cargo bed. Instead of leaving the box open and usable for work, Lincoln lined it with carpet and stainless steel trim, then sealed it with a power-operated tonneau cover. It looked extravagant, but the design stripped the truck of true utility. Owners could not carry gravel, tools, or muddy gear without damaging the delicate surfaces. With only rear-wheel drive available, it lacked the four-wheel drive capability that pickup buyers in America considered essential. What Lincoln called innovation, most drivers saw as limitation. The pricing made the problem worse. At nearly $53,000 in early 2000s money, the Blackwood cost more than many fully loaded competitors that actually delivered on toughness. Buyers who were used to Cadillacs or Lincolns on the road could not justify that figure for a truck that struggled with basics, while traditional pickup owners laughed at the lack of function. As a result, dealerships found the Blackwood nearly impossible to sell, and unsold inventory piled up faster than demand could rise. To Lincoln's credit, the interior was comfortable and stylish, with leather, wood trim, and plenty of features. Yet those details could not disguise its identity crisis. It was neither a true luxury sedan nor a capable truck, but a confused experiment that satisfied no one. Production ended after a brief run, making the Blackwood a rare sight today, but also a cautionary tale. The Lincoln Blackwood remains proof that a luxury badge alone cannot carry a pickup. Once Lincoln's miscalculation fades into the rear view, we steer toward Ford's Explorer Sport Trac, a crossover pickup experiment that rattled engines, slipped gears, and proved compromise can be costly. Ford Explorer Sport Trac. When Ford introduced the Explorer Sport Trac at the dawn of the new millennium, it looked like a clever idea destined for success. The concept was simple, yet appealing. Take the popular Explorer Sport utility vehicle, stretch the body, and graft on a small pickup bed. In theory, drivers would get the comfort and family-friendly interior of an SUV with the added practicality of a truck. For buyers who wanted one vehicle that could juggle work, play, and daily commuting, it seemed like the best of both worlds. Unfortunately, the execution was riddled with compromises that soon overshadowed the promise. The most serious issue came from the 4.0-liter single overhead camshaft V6 engine. This motor was infamous for its overly complicated timing chain setup, with multiple chains routed through both the front and the rear of the engine block. It depended on plastic guides and tensioners that wore out far too early. As the miles piled on, owners began hearing the dreaded rattle that signaled costly trouble. Repairs often required lifting the cab off the frame just to reach the rear components, pushing bills into the thousands of dollars. For a truck marketed to middle-class families, that kind of expense was devastating. Transmission troubles added to the headaches. Slipping gears, harsh shifts, and premature failures left many Sport Trac owners stranded. Combined with the already fragile engine, the powertrain quickly became a symbol of unreliability. The truck bed, while unique, was also small and shallow, limiting its usefulness for real hauling. Owners who expected to load up plywood or large tools were disappointed by the restricted capacity. Inside, the cabin borrowed heavily from the Explorer, which meant adequate comfort, but also outdated design and materials that wore quickly. Safety recalls tied to airbags and aging crash test results further dampened enthusiasm. By the time production wrapped in 2005, the Sport Trac had already left a mixed legacy. The Ford Explorer Sport Trac proved that a half measure between SUV and pickup often leaves buyers with the worst of both worlds rather than the best. With the Sport Trac's identity crisis behind us, the crown of disappointment belongs to the mighty Super Duty, where Ford's 6.0-liter diesel became the most infamous failure in modern truck history. You've seen the countdown nearly complete. Now make sure you don't miss the next one. Smash that subscribe button and join thousands who never get left in the dark. Ford Super Duty. Few trucks in American history have carried a reputation as infamous as the Ford Super Duty fitted with the 6.0-liter Power Stroke diesel. When it debuted in the year 2003, it was marketed as the next great leap forward for heavy-duty pickups, boasting modern engineering, improved emission systems, and torque numbers that promised to outmuscle the competition. Owners expected a long-lasting workhorse that could tow fifth-wheel trailers, haul massive loads, and handle punishing job sites without breaking a sweat. Instead, this truck became a symbol of frustration, endless repairs, and wallets drained dry. The core of the disaster lay in the engine's design. The 6.0-liter was riddled with weaknesses, starting with its exhaust gas recirculation coolers that cracked and leaked, sending coolant into places it never belonged. Head gaskets failed under high boost pressure, often warping cylinder heads and requiring complete teardowns. High-pressure oil systems that powered the injectors were equally troublesome, with seals and fittings that leaked unpredictably. Turbochargers, tasked with delivering brute power, frequently stuck or failed outright. The result was a diesel that left countless owners stranded and mechanics working overtime. The repair bills were staggering. Many drivers reported costs running into 5 figures as they replaced components again and again. Entire industries sprang up around bulletproofing these engines, offering upgraded head studs, stronger EGR coolers, and improved oil systems. While those fixes often restored reliability, the expense and hassle left deep scars. Owners who purchased Super Duty trucks with dreams of confident towing found themselves juggling rental vehicles and explaining to clients why the mighty Ford was back in the shop yet again. What makes the story more painful is that the Super Duty itself was otherwise an excellent truck. Its chassis was robust, interiors were spacious, and towing capacity was impressive on paper. But the engine's chronic failures overshadowed all those strengths. Resale values dropped, and word of mouth turned brutal. The Ford Super Duty with the 6.0-liter Power Stroke stands as a cautionary monument. Even the toughest badge can falter when engineering cuts corners. It remains a legend for all the wrong reasons, remembered not for the loads it hauled, but for the repair bills it buried owners under. So there you have it, the 10 worst trucks that left American drivers stranded, broke, or betrayed. If this list opened your eyes, don't just walk away, take action. Hit like to push this truth further, drop a comment to share your own truck nightmare, and subscribe right now so you never miss the next hard-hitting countdown. Remember, knowledge is power, and the next video might be the one that saves you from making the costliest mistake of all.